Hey, disturbing listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's watch.
What we're feeling, and I think that, I think we can get on the same page on this. Mahogany drove us here in her car, so it will be nice to have some mandatory alone time where we are forced to talk, and maybe we'll be able to get to the bottom of some of these issues.
Oh, I forgot. So, can't they just get different cars? Can't he get an Uber or something? Come on, Ben. Like, just don't. But if he's forced to, okay, so get to the bottom of what, Ben? It's pretty clear. 2, the word mandatory sticks out. Getting back to the parent-teacher conference that we watched earlier, that's not what it was, but it had a certain flair of that. And mandatory. There's so many other words he could have used. Like, he could have said it could be good to have some good concentrated time, some good time where we can actually get into some things, but mandatory, that's implies non-consensual, Ben.
Even if I don't think I did anything wrong, there was something that she understood as a betrayal. So I'll apologize where I can, but yeah, I don't know if I did anything that wrong,
Yeah, and this is normal. So we use this as a jumping off point. It's very normal and, I guess somewhat rational to want, when you're being dumped and you feel like you're being dumped for the wrong reasons, you want to refute it. You want to say, hey, I don't think that's fair. And I get that, but it's not usually a very good tree to bark up, because it's not like she is going to say, oh my God, you're right. I'm so sorry. It's just, you can think it, you could vent, you could talk with other people, but to go to her and expect her to respond well is irrational. Now, you could argue, look, I just want to get some stuff off my chest. I just want to tell her, I don't think you're being fair. I think you're accusing me of things that you don't even know that much about. I barely told you about anything about my wife, and you've made this conclusion, and I don't think that's fair. Okay, maybe you feel like some injustice has happened, so you have to voice that. But if I were Ben's friend, I'd be like, look, dude, there's a pretty good possibility you've been catfished, and there's nothing good that can come from you interacting with her. She clearly has, either she never had feelings for you, or she has no feelings for you now and hasn't for quite some time. She not only doesn't have feelings for you, she's treating you with contempt. The idea that, so if we just follow the timeline, okay, she supposedly is in love, has said nothing to the contrary, and they go to this bonfire thing, and she's like, so tell me about what happened with your ex-wife. And he's like, well, it was mostly her fault. And then she's like, oh, that's terrible. And it's like, okay, maybe it's a red flag, but certainly not the sort of thing where it's just like, I was in love with you and now I'm not. What a terrible human being you are. It's like, it doesn't rise to that level for me anyway. I mean, people can make their own choices regarding romance. But anyway, so then he pours his heart out. She ghosts him on text. He doesn't show up to breakfast. The next interaction they have is she shows up with a note and says, my father couldn't show up. And he's like, oh, I couldn't make it. And she's like, look, I just came to deliver the note. See ya. That is some callous stuff right there. If you are on now, if they were on their third date, okay, still a little callous, but certainly within the realm of fair play, I would imagine. But saying you're in love, saying you want to have kids, saying you want to spend the rest of your life with someone, and then that's the way you break up with them, it's just like, yeah, I don't even want to be here, see ya. Wow.
Despite how poorly this trip has gone so far, I'm still in this, and I still have a little bit of hope, because God placed her in my heart, and I don't know why, but he did. And as long as she's there, I need to pursue this thing.
There must be some allowance, Ben, for the fact that God isn't involved in everything, that everything doesn't happen because God wanted it to happen, that God might have set up free will and a world for you to explore on your own. And I know some people don't see it this way, but I find this to be not helping him. Like, God put her in my heart for a reason. Another way of putting it, Ben, within your religion is God created a landscape from which I could explore. He's not he's not dictating everything. I have free will. And my heart, he gave me a heart. He gave me the capacity to love. He created Mahogany and me. And I fell in love with her. God didn't make me fall in love with her. I just fell in love with her. But this notion that God put her in my heart, I guess it's a way of seeing the world, and as long as it's not destructive, but I think it is kind of destructive. It implies somehow that, well, God wants me to do something. God wants me to do something with her. God put her in my heart for a reason. Therefore, I'm supposed to be with her, right? That kind of thing. And it also potentially, because the way he talks about God and the way he talks about the meaning of life, it doesn't necessarily include other people's point of view, right? God, but what did God do to her? Did God put you in her heart? That question doesn't really, it's not asked.
Until the bitter, bitter end.
Oh, let me rewind that. So now I'm 99.9% sure that regardless of how much Ben decides to crash and burn this at the end, that it's going to end. But there's a matter of damage control. But I want to rewind that because it just sounds like he's determined to crash and burn right now.
I'm still in this, and I still have a little bit of hope because God placed her in my heart. And I don't know why, but he did. And as long as she's there, I need to pursue this thing until the bitter, bitter end.
This interview is happening perhaps days, weeks, months after the event. I'm pretty sure of that, or maybe not. Maybe this interview is happening that day. Who knows? The point is that he is saying, if I were there, I'd be, Ben, just listen to that. Just listen to what you just said. You're going to pursue it to the bitter, bitter end. That kind of implies it's going to end in a bitter way. So cut your losses, pal. It's clear. So, and the other thing I'd say to him is, okay, let's say there is a shred of hope. Let's say there is an avenue to the two of you rekindling your relationship. Do you want to be in a relationship with someone that acts like that towards you? You deserve better than that, really. Please make her not be there. Make her have gone home and make Ben get his own car. Please. I don't want to see it. I don't know. This is tragedy. It's horrible. There's something incredibly comical about just the whole look. And the mouth open, door open, sunglasses on inside, no shirt, morning time. It's terrible for Ben, but so Ben, just get in a car. Just go home. Call yourself foolish. Say, maybe God wasn't wanting me to do this. Maybe this was God trying to show me how I need to not be the way that I am. But now maybe he just got the wrong room.
Actually, is Mahogany here? A girl?
No, este es mi cuarto.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Mi cuarto.
Lo siento, lo siento.
Okay, it's the wrong room. Okay.
De acuerdo.
Okay. This is weird.
It's weird. Just go home. Just go home. And never go on a reality TV show ever again. And never chat with anyone younger than 45 on the internet ever again. Just go home and just Never again.
Did she leave? Where's her car? Her car's not there.
Wow. I mean, I'm sure she knew that. Well, I mean, just imagine someone else doing this to someone. Anyway, but yeah, I'm sure he has the means to, and I'm sure she knew he had the means to get a car. But thank God, honestly. So this is a message from God. God not only put her in your heart, but actually told her to drive away so that you wouldn't drive this to the bitter, bitter end.
Did a young woman check out today? Room 201.
No, ella se retiró el día de ayer en la noche.
Anoche?
Sí, hizo su salida.
She left last night?
Sí.
Okay.
So, again, if we just see it from his perspective, you can call him a fool, which I hope he would call himself a fool after all this. But if you just take it for what it is, he fell in love. There was reciprocal love and plans. Goes down there, gets the cold shoulder, trying to make it work. You could say that he has some issues with not taking responsibility for his past relationships. A lot of people have that problem. And then dropping off the note, look, I don't even want to be here, gone. And then ghost, just drive off, complete abandonment. That's pretty rough. I mean, if you just think about now, I'm sure he'll recover. I'm sure he'll be fine. But, you know, there's other ways to do this. There's other more mature ways to do this, perhaps, of, at the very least, a text and say, hey, by the way, I checked out. I'm going home. I'm sorry. Can you get your own ride home? I'm sure you can. Just heads up. You know, that's all it takes. Did he do things that would justify abandoning him right now? I don't think so.
Like, who does that? I can't believe she left. I cannot believe she left.
I can. I mean, that's a little surprising, but when I think about it, no, because think about it from her perspective. So if we're going on the hypothesis that she was never in love with him, or she was barely in like with him over text, he lands, all, you know, vectors are pointing towards she wasn't into him and perhaps never was. She's barely struggling with whatever she was up to, either trying to be on the TV show or what, in terms of what we saw when they were interacting in person. There was deceptiveness. Oh, wait, I don't remember telling you I was 24, even though he says, no. We were celebrating her 24th birthday. I said, happy 24th birthday to her. That kind of thing. Again, it alerts the age gap, but whatever. The point is that from her perspective, she's like, and then she clearly showed that, like, I'm just dropping off the note from my dad and I'm out. Like, I don't even want to be here. I don't want to talk to you. It makes total sense she would not want to be stuck in a car for 3 hours with him, which, yeah, okay. But again, I just wish she would have texted him before he came down and said, by the way, I've been playing a game and I'm really sorry. Or even just lie. Just add to the lies and just say before he came down or after he landed, oh, I'm so sorry I have a boyfriend. Or, oh, I'm so sorry I'm too young and I don't want to settle down. I've changed my mind. Just, you know, just something. Or, oh my God, I've died. Just something but to play this game and to look for any possible thing you can point to. Be, oh, that's the why I don't want to be with him. You're immature. It's your fault. You're to blame, and I'm gonna ghost. It's like, yikes.
Gracias. This is absolutely ridiculous. Like, I can't for the life of me think what I did yesterday that turned into this. It's incredibly immature. Like, she is definitely showing her age.
So perhaps, but I would hope that he would entertain the idea that she was never in love with him. I don't know if he's awoken. I don't know if he's woken. Sometimes I say words, I'm like, is that a word? I don't think he is awake to that idea that she never loved him. I don't think he has. I think he's like, what did I do? How come she's treating me this way? So I would hope that he would consider that as a possibility, because it certainly would explain a lot. And of course, it would explain the disrespect and the contempt that she's showing for him right now.
Like, I'm so confused right now. And it's just such an overreaction. I don't understand any of this.
Someone actually emailed in and talked about the possibility that he comes from a cult or an extreme religion that values the human emotional experience perhaps a little too much, or frames it in a way that can lead to this. So let me explain. Where they believe that when you have a strong emotion, it is clear evidence that the Holy Spirit or God is inside of you. And that is your connection with God and with the divine is through your heart. And that is utilized within these groups to promote more adherence to the religion, because you can create emotional experiences and you say that's God. And of course it's very euphoric to have those experiences. And I'm simplifying and sort of painting it in a particular way, and it is kind of related to my work, because as a professor, I would watch professors who would create very meaningful emotional experiences for the students in class. They would engineer, they knew how to, and on one angle, you could say they're creating a very meaningful experience, very purposeful and great experience for the students, because the students aren't just sitting in class and learning about PowerPoint stuff, but they're actually having a transformational experience as a clinician and as a person in a class. And so that's the pro side. On the con side, one could say that the professors knew that if they provoked an emotional experience, because they're very good at that as a leader, as a therapist, as a professor, then the students will perceive that profound emotional experience as something that indicates the class was good and worth it, and that the professor is wonderful. Because when you provoke those kinds of emotions, it creates the opportunity for a charismatic leader to become associated with those feelings, and you end up having a lot of loyalty and dedication and power as a leader, as a charismatic leader in a situation like that. And so on the pro side, the students are saying, it was the best class I ever took. On the con side, you're manipulating people into a state, and then you step in, and then you become a god to them in some ways. Now, there were some students that would talk to me and say, it was rare, but it would happen, where they would feel like, I know what that professor's up to. That professor is manipulating me to feel a feeling. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to learn. I'm here to have an experience, but I'm not going to play that game. And the professor didn't react well to that, because it wasn't mandatory to have that kind of emotional experience, but it was definitely like pressure to have that experience. And if you didn't play a game, there were emotional consequences. Anyway, I'm simplifying, and there were many professors that did this sort of thing, and I was looking up to those professors and watching them do this sort of thing. And on one hand, I was like, ooh, I should be like them. On the other hand, I was like, I don't know if I should be like them. And so as a professor, I did a little bit of that, but not as much as what I saw in some other classes. So I was hoping that, and I always also made sure that everyone had an out. Like, while I'm on this topic, I'll just go down this road. Like, one of the things that I would do is I would do an empty chair exercise, which is a Gestalt humanistic technique in which you visualize. There's various different ways to do it, but the way that I did it in class is a way of demonstrating to students. So it was a class on countertransference and childhood, their own childhood, the family of origin. The students are learning about their own sensitivities, their own relational traumas, so that they can get used to them, because they're going to be triggered by their clients in that way. And they're going to have countertransference. It's going to interfere with compassion and treatment, and it's a very important aspect of development as a clinician, as a therapist, to learn about your countertransferential vulnerabilities, and this class is designed to do that. And so I was doing an empty chair with one of their parents. So they would visualize one of their parents sitting in front of them. The other aspect of this is it teaches the students what it's like to do this kind of intervention so that they can learn what it feels like to be a client role in the situation so that they can actually do it as a clinician. And so I'm demonstrating and showing exactly how this works, but I'm doing it to all, 12 students. So I'm having them visualize there's a relaxation phase where I, encourage them to relax and to go inward and to deep breathe and focus on their breathing and this kind of thing. And then I ask them to visualize one of their parents. I sitting across from them, even while their eyes are closed. I ask them to think about what their parents are wearing, how old this parent is. And then, we go, that's a second phase. And then the third phase is I will ask them to think about what they would like to say to that person, and they can say whatever they want. And their parent has maybe even indicated, I'm open to hearing you talk. I will listen. I will listen to what you have to say. I won't interrupt you. I won't defend myself. You can say whatever you want. And then the fourth phase is I have them open their eyes quietly, and then they just start writing what they would have said to their parent. It gets them in kind of a state, right? And so it can be very emotional because obviously, right? And so as a contrast to this, if I just ask students, what would you like to say to your parents that you never said? Well, you would get a certain style of response. Some people would go straight there, but a lot of people wouldn't. But you get people into that space where they're actually visualizing their parent sitting across, even if their parent has passed, they're imagining their parent being across from them. And the relaxation and the intensity and the purposefulness and the space and then the writing, it can be intense. But what I will say are two things. And before I do any, and anyway, so we do that, and there's crying and there's talking and there's hugging, and it's a very intense experience in a classroom. It's along those lines of creating an emotional experience that can really provoke, if I'm not careful, kind of a worship of me because I was the one that created that. There's this human tendency that when someone creates an emotional experience in you, even if it's kind of negative, you end up attaching yourself to that person. It's a well-known thing. And so I try to avoid that. But one of the things, through various different methods, but one of the things that I'll do in the very beginning is I will explain, this is what we're going to do, and I'll explain the whole thing. And then I say, if one, you don't want to go there, because I don't want to create a situation where you feel forced to have an emotional experience, then as we're doing the exercise, just do relaxation. Don't imagine your parent sitting across from you. Because at the end of all this, I'm not going to call on you and say what happened for you. You can just be quietly having a different experience, and you won't have to indicate if you did it or you didn't do it. You could just voluntarily inside of you say, I'm just going to think about what I'm going to do later tonight with my eyes closed, and that's okay. Also, if you're at risk of having trauma being triggered because you were traumatized by one of your parents, and you don't think it's going to be safe for you psychically to go there, then I actually require you to not do this exercise, because it is irresponsible of me to harm you in that way, of exposing you to a trigger that could actually trigger your complex PTSD. But anyway, so I give them that out. And then, so the people who step, and then I say, for those of you who want to voluntarily step into this place, know that you're heading into a potentially very emotional place, a place that you might think will be fine, but it might not be, because this is an exercise that often will provoke a lot of deep emotions. So only go into it voluntarily. So I try to account for that. The professors that I was looking up to in my early career as a professor, they didn't do that. They just head into it very quickly, and there was really no way out of it. And it wasn't even just like an hour of time in class. It was like several days. Anyway, the point is that it's possible that for Ben, he had that experience, and there was that, because it can really create a cult following and a loyalty, and also a discounting of facts, because the heart feels certain things. And so that's when you can sort of insert falsehoods that can keep people under your control. Now, it's possible that the severe religion / cult wasn't nefarious. It's possible that they actually believed in what they were saying, and they thought that they were doing a good thing for people. It's also possible that the leaders, in part or in whole, knew they were manipulating people. We'll never know. It's probably the latter. Honestly, it usually is, because there are sort of generational aspects to this. The charismatic leader had a charismatic leader who actually convinced them. Anyway, which actually is kind of true of the professors that I'm referring to. It's possible that for Ben, he came out of that space where emotions are everything and total evidence of the Holy Spirit, and that when he felt love for Mahogany, the only way to frame it is it must be God. This must be God happening. And so I must believe it. And if I don't believe it, I'm actually against God. And if I question it, I'm actually questioning God, which is not okay. And I wonder if that's where he's operating from, which obviously would throw a wrench in his ability to evaluate the rationality of texting someone online who clearly is using a filter and who won't talk with you. It would explain at least part of his foolishness. I've also talked about the fact that he might not have an adult understanding of dating. It's also possible that related to that, he doesn't really understand that people are human beings, that he is only thinking about it in terms of how it looks to him and how it feels to him, and he's not really concerned with the reality of other people. It's like, well, it feels good to me and therefore it's real, and that's a childish way of looking at the world. I'm not really explaining that well, but anyway, so let's rewind that.
I can't for the life of me think what I did yesterday that turned into this. It's incredibly immature. She is definitely showing her age. I'm so confused right now, and it's just such an overreaction. I don't understand any of this.
Again, it all makes sense if she was never in love with you to begin with. Then you're not confused at all. And hopefully, maybe by the tell-all, someone will have convinced him of that and told him, maybe when he watches this, I have faith in him, if you will, that when he watches this, he's going to be like, wow. I mean, looking at it from the outside, the way she hugged me in that, she wasn't into me ever. I hope that he at least has that as an option, because it would explain a lot.
¿Está aquí para Benjamin?
Sí,
San Bartolo?
sí, San Bartolo.
Okay, gracias. I've risked a lot for this relationship. My reputation, finances, what my family thinks about me.
Another thing I'll throw out there is, in one respect, you could consider him to have recently emerged from the isolation of the severe religion / cult. Think of Plathville kids or other people like that, where they're susceptible to being manipulated. They don't know how the world works. They don't understand that there are scams out there, and they are easy victims for that. You could kind of maybe see him at least in that direction. I'm not saying he's not to blame for not seeing the signs and for his foolishness, but it could be a factor in his naivete.
And all because I thought Mahogany was someone I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. Gracias. But at this point, I'm starting to think I'm just an idiot for following this path to where I am right now.
Good. And I don't want him to beat himself up, but I think that's the tagline. That's the thesis. That's the topic sentence. I was an idiot for even pursuing this to begin with. And I should never have pursued it. I should have seen the signs long ago. I shouldn't be dating people that young. I shouldn't be dating people online. It was a huge risk, and I was a fool to think that this had as much truthfulness to it as I thought it did.
And maybe it's time to finally call it quits.
Well, it's interesting. So I don't know, but we're almost at the end of this episode, and I think this episode is the last episode, right? Before we get to the tell-alls. So if that's how it ends, that's, and I guess we'll find out at the tell-all, but, okay. So he goes home. I just want him to go home. I just want him to go home. Just put it behind you. It looks like maybe that's the case. All right, well, if you didn't know already, we got merch and Cameo. Links should be below if you want to get a t-shirt or a mug, or you want to get me to say happy birthday to someone, or congratulations, or whatever, even to your own pets. Sometimes I congratulate birthdays of pets, so that's always fun. You can do so now, going to cameo.com or the app on your phone, or you can go to, anyway, the links are below. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.